starting in 2020. This was following the NRI of the town. We did some initial field surveys in December of 2021. And that was both with myself and staff from the Forest Service, Mark Prout, who's their fisheries biologist. We did a second survey in May of 2022. And that was with Landon Grukowski, who is also with the Forest Service. Good morning.
Morning.
And that was to look at the hydrology. He's their hydrologist with the Pemigewasset District. And then we presented these findings in June of 2022 and provided a first draft of a mitigation plan at that time, which was reviewed with Forest Service staff in October of 2022. By December, we did a third field survey of the area with Forest Service staff. And by January of 2023, we had received Condo Association support for this project to help mitigate potential property loss in the wake of these high flood events in Snows Brook. We got an official support letter from the Forest Service in February of 2023. And a second draft of the mitigation plan was produced in July of that year. This past January, we did a site visit with the Forest Service. There were several members present of the Conservation Commission as well. Things seem to be moving forward very nicely. We confirmed the eligibility for ARM Fund grant monies in February. And that was intended to be one of our matching grants for the $50,000 that was dedicated by the town for this project. And unfortunately, in June, that went away. We had a distinct and vocal no way stated by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, which I found very interesting, since they're the ones that oversee the through the statewide programmatic permit with New Hampshire. They oversee the mitigation funds as they are expended statewide. And they, at least this one individual, appeared to believe that this project was not a viable remediation project for reasons that I still do not quite understand.
I was going to say, did he give you some reasons?
Not really.
Yeah.
I mean, the closest he said is that
will be for next spring.
the next spring.
Yeah.
And that's what I was going to actually ask about. I have, like I said, a few other questions, and it was a timing thing. It seems like the work really needs to happen next year at this point, and perhaps it'll be a little bit lower water by then. We haven't really seen any kind of lowering of the water table this summer. All my vernal pools are still full. And
Interesting.
they're supposed to dry out in May.
Yeah.
So next year, seems like that would be the best year, and there are a bunch of action steps that I would propose or like to discuss. First, Mark, how does this all sound? Did you have something to add to
Well,
that?
what I would like to do is still try to do something before the end of this year,
Mhm. Yeah.
with a letter from Brooke
Yeah.
Brown, that says, you know, submit this with the, both the Form 1, Form 2, get into the small projects day
Yep.
for the spring
Mhm.
review.
Yep.
But have her word it in such a way that, you know, barring some extreme unforeseen thing, we're going into this with the understanding that it's going to get approved.
Right.
And we're gonna be able to do the work in 25.
Right.
I don't know if the auditor is gonna say that's good enough, but we need something as
Mhm.
concrete as it can be.
Yeah.
From the Forest Service. To say the project is in process, we've just.
Yeah.
Run into these issues and we're trying to resolve them, and now we have Forest Service support. They were very supportive at the May meeting,
Right.
so. I would hope that they wouldn't have a problem writing an email like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that
So-
sounds like a reasonable
I mean,
approach.
without that, we really should take that money, lapse it to fund balance and reappropriate it.
Yeah, right.
But that's always a crapshoot because you don't know how town meeting's gonna vote.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
yeah. So
rather not lose it.
is
me too.
would it be too early this fall to start preparing an RFP and seeking bids?
No, absolutely not.
Okay, because that would be another, indication that
Mhm.
we're moving forward and taking action on
Yep.
on this money, on these monies that have been appropriated. And the second to that, besides RFP and contractors, I assume that the town has a 3 bid minimum
Well,
process, or is that kind of flexible?
it's flexible.
Okay, all
I
right,
mean, we make every effort to get 3 bids, but
yeah,
some projects, there's only
Yeah.
1 or 2 contractors who can do it.
okay.
So, and
the-
that's fine.
Yeah, and I assume that I fall into that same category as
Yep.
and with that, the reason I ask is because, as you know, wetland permitting takes a while.
Mhm.
And this would be a great time this winter
Yep.
to do the permit. So if somehow we could secure that sort of confirmation of moving ahead, then I can go ahead and I've got all the field data. That's no issue. I've got backup support. And if we get that letter from the Forest Service, that would go in as a supporting letter for the permit application. But I anticipate that the feds are going to review this a little bit more closely, even though it's a scaled down version. The permit footprint is minor, it's minimal. Okay, and we're not asking for money, so don't anticipate any concerns there, because most of the work is going to be outside of jurisdiction. There'll be a top I do out there. I'll be present on site when the contractors are there doing the ditch work. Obviously, I'll be, the primary person for the wood jam enhancement. It's something that I do, as I said, on a regular basis anyway. And then the monitoring, and I'll do that yearly for a minimum of 3 years. The Corps may require 5, but I don't think they will because it's such a small footprint. But 3 is what the state requires, so. Or almost 2 to the old growth forest, is that there's so much wood in there that it blocks that stream flow from
Might be that line.
doing anything other than what it naturally does with floodplains. Goes out to a floodplain, comes back in, goes out
Okay.
to a floodplain. So that's a natural process. What we've done on Snow's Brook, sort of, unbeknownst to the natural process, is that we've confined it first and foremost to one path that goes under 2 bridges before it gets into the pond. Okay, so that confinement is a problem. So what we want to try and do is allow that stream to go back into the floodplain like it used to before it gets to Valley View Road. And then it can come back around and much slower with much less sediment go through that
Gotcha.
bridge under Valley View into the pond. So yeah, that's the
Okay.
idea. It's pretty basic hydrology stuff. But the other, of course, problem is that classically we have cut all the trees right next to the stream. And so
Yeah.
there isn't much wood left in Snow's Brook. And that goes all the way up. I mean, yeah, when you've got a 100-year flood event, it's gonna, ream all that stuff out of the way. And drop it into the floodplains and then create these big wood jams where there are big boulders and stuff. But normally, like if you go ahead and go up to that old growth forest, you'll see it's about between 12 and 15% cover of wood. In Snow's Brook, it's like that much. You might have one tree here and there. And so once it's gone, once the wood is gone, then there's nothing to slow the water down.
Right.
And for however long it's been, that water's been flowing unimpeded. And whatever small sticks fall in the way get now washed away by flood events every single time. So it just keeps itself free and clear of any obstructions. So that's what this whole stream restoration effort is, that
Okay.
the feds now are recognizing and starting to pay for. They got to practice. It's 395A, and I've gotten a couple of grants to do this work from the feds across the state. We've treated 28 miles, I think, so far, 29 miles. So, and Trout Unlimited is doing it for trout. I'm doing it primarily for water quality and downstream property protection.
Where's the wood jam that you're?
The wood jam is right at the head of that small island that's created when the Snowsbrook forks. So it's down where we want to start that overflow. I could draw it. Yeah, is it there? Yeah. So right about in here,
Okay,
there's.
so it's up on the National Forest land.
It's on the National
Okay.
Forest, it's right there, so there's an overflow channel that goes out and then comes back into the
Uh-huh.
brook here. And right where it forks into that fairly newly created, that was Irene that really did that. There's a big wood jam right there.
Uh-huh.
And so the idea is take the overflow channel that we're gonna construct in this direction and take some of that wood and bring it
Okay.
into here so that we actually have some more resistance
Mhm.
before it hits going down. So that's, yeah. So that's pretty much the story. Other questions or thoughts? Mark, let me know if you get that, find that Form 1.
Yeah.
I can jump right on that. I filled these out before, but Brooke said she had a template. And they do change from year to year, which I've learned the hard way.
This, if we stick with replacing the two culverts,
Yep.
beefing up that wood jam, maybe a few other things. Given the various permits and paperwork still to be done,
Mhm.
when do you anticipate in an ideal world this work might actually get done?
Next year,
Next year?
yeah,
So, because I know there's concern about when to dredge Corcoran Pond.
yeah.
Well, I'm gonna talk about
You're gonna
that
get
in
to
just
that?
a
Yeah.
second, but that timing of the work being done next summer, fall is perfect in line with
The dredging.
the dredging.
Do you
And
have,
in fact, we were worried that we would be dredging too soon.
Right.
Ah.
Yeah, we don't want to do that.
no. Do you have to get permits too to dredge?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
there's all kinds, there's stormwater protection plans, there's wetlands permits, there's fish and game will have to give a permit. The Corps of Engineers does not, as far as I know, unless regulations have changed.
The dam?
But yeah, we're gonna have several issues with DES on the dredging project.
This new or lifting of restriction that you mentioned, that private
Mhm.
landowners can undo log jams,
Yeah,
that shouldn't, there isn't any
no, it's
private.
all
We're all
public, so that
public,
won't
so it
affect
should
that.
go.
Yeah. And I should say that this was born of this last December storm.
Oh, wow.
And there were a number of culverts, and particularly, pretty much, I don't know, half, a third of the people that live in New Hampshire have a culvert under the driveway.
Yeah,
And somebody got slapped for doing a little more than just removing the debris. And they complained to their state rep, the rep wrote a bill, the bill got
Oh.
passed.
oh, it's
And
nice.
now you can do anything you want, bridge, culvert, or wood jam. It doesn't even say how far away or anywhere. It doesn't give any locations, and somebody can go in without a permit and remove those. I'm like, wow. what's
This
that do?
makes me think of
Yeah.
an incident in Michigan where a guy blew up a beaver dam up above a park that we used to go to. Well, you can imagine the mess. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
And he
this,
wasn't legally allowed to do that. He
No.
did it anyway. I guess.
and this is gonna happen.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen. Somebody's gonna remove a little too much.
The damage
and
is unbelievable.
You're not supposed to use equipment, but I guarantee that people
They're
will,
going
because
to.
what the heck, they're not gonna go in there with shovels and try and remove this stuff. It's gonna be
Yeah.
cherry picked out with some kind of backhoe or excavator, and they're gonna claim that they have the right to do it, and it'll be in court again, and downstream property owners are gonna be affected,
Yeah.
and that'll be a suit, and it's just, you try and see these things in advance of happening, but to the best of your knowledge,
A lawyer's dream, it sounds like.
unintended consequence. Yeah, right, I know, job security for lawyers. But Mark, I did look at the budget and just, put a couple of the numbers that I had in here in the proposal, and I think we're okay. I think we'll be able to manifest with what we hope to do under that 50,000.
Okay,
The real question I have is sometimes the Forest Service staff, like they do with any kind of project, they look for sort of reimbursements for their staff time involved in projects. And
yeah, we, in May, they really did not see any time because
Yeah.
we were taking
Yeah.
the burden of doing all of the permitting and
Mm.
doing all of the work ourselves. So I did not get the impression that they were gonna be
Right.
looking for much, if any, reimbursement.
Yeah.
Maybe keeping a contingency number in the budget plan for the 50,000 would be a good idea.
yeah,
Just in case they do.
I think that's wise. But yeah, the numbers that I'm putting together comes to about 38.5 or something like that, so.
And it'd be important to, for, if you can get that to me.
Yep.
Clean it up and get it to me. I'd like to review it with the selectmen on Wednesday,
All right.
this week, and just because we're going over revenues for budget.
Yep.
Setting. And so,
And then I just printed off a copy of the participating agreement, and I don't know if you've done any work on this, that when they sent this. But that's something that I think they still want us to put together.
when did they send that to?
This was, I look back and,
Participating agreement.
yeah,
From the Forest Service?
yeah, from the Forest Service. This is, basically when there is work done on federal land, they have to fill these guys out. And this was just the blank, it's their form, which
Yeah.
I've got electronic, you've seen that. So, names the town of Waterville and
yeah.
all that stuff, so.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that something that you?
I can do that.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll leave
that's-
that with you
that's
then. I
not a-
printed that for you in case you. Great. All right. I think that is pretty much the story. I do have one call to make, to Ryan Harvey, who is the other Sawyer I typically work with. Just because I told him about this project, he says, yeah, right, whatever, and I let him know it was gonna be 2025, but he and I would work together on
I think
the
so.
Sawyer work and moving the wood into the wood jam, and he's got a
Okay.
grip hoist and a cable and stuff, so. And that would be the only sub that I see.
Okay.
It's
So
an
we-
administrative question, the 50,000 that the town approved, that wasn't reliant on a grant?
No, we had the authorization was for $100,000 estimated cost,
Okay,
with 50,000 coming from the town
okay,
and 50,000 from the grant.
okay, but it wasn't reliant
But
on,
it was not reliant the
Okay.
way that we worded it, so we got the project pared down now to this,
To the 50.
and so we
perfect,
will be able to use the 50,000
okay,
for it. And I'll get we'll have a discussion and I'll request a vote from the board to accept the estimated budget from Rick and if it's 38 or 40,000, then we'll get a not to exceed of 50 and move forward,
okay,
because we're still a year out, so
yeah,
we'll that way we can encumber the entire amount for one more year.
Sounds good to me.
Great, okay.
So fitting into the dredging project, we've had a sit down with the engineer and the select board, and then the chairman and I sat down with Sununus and Tim Smith. We have agreed in concept that we will do the dredging project in 2026. We use 2025 as the permitting period with Horizons. Move forward with Horizons plan for dry excavation. And a bypass stormwater protection plan, bypass of Snows Brook like we did in 2008. When we dredged the pond the last time. We're going for a depth somewhere around 21 feet.
Wow.
That's a lot of.
At the center. It's not gonna be varied like it was before with deep portions and it's gonna be a straight excavation with slope sides around the entire thing. So we'll present that plan to DES in a major other piece that we're going to request as part, and we'll put in the design will be a 4-bay right where Snows Brook comes into the pond. And then we will seek to permit the 4-bay for annual dredging operations.
What's the for?
It's an area where we put rocks, slow the water down as it comes out from underneath the bridge.
Okay,
Get it to slow down right there. Hopefully the sediment will drop out in the 4-bay, and then you have an annual permit where you go in with an excavator and clean out the
That makes
4-bay.
sense.
So,
I'd like to
did
see you
not-
not have to do that at all, but.
well, I'd like to know
I think
how
it's
to do it,
smart.
but it's
Yeah.
it's a preventative
Yeah.
measure that if we can, because what happened last time was we designed a 4-bay and we
Would-
wanted to do that.
Yeah.
And DES made us remove it when they approved the
Hmm.
dredging plan. They did not allow us, which was ridiculous and has led to all of the trouble we're having now. Because if we had that structure in there, we
Yeah.
probably would not be
Yeah.
looking at a complete dredging
Dredge,
project.
no,
right now.
no.
Do we get any
so-
reimbursement for the area?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Just a point of question.
So,
You're great.
So right now, the resort is on board. We probably will be trying to time it. We're gonna initially ask for a springtime 26 project. Probably will not get that permitted by DES. But we're gonna ask, because that's their preferred slow period to do it. If not, it will be a fall 26 project. So we will not interfere with the summer season. The engineers have estimated approximately 80 days of actual dredging work. where the pond would have to be empty. We did talk to the resort about the potential for an extension of that to 90 or 120 days. Which would interfere with the use of the pond as snowmaking
Yeah,
water, but Tim said that he'd rather have it dredged than not. So they would rely on the Mad River for their snowmaking water for one season. So,
Do they draw from the pond every
yeah,
winter?
they do
They do.
every winter.
That's why that little,
In fact, that's why the little building is there at the end of the
Yeah.
bridge.
Yeah,
They have drained it the last 2 winters, like completely,
the pond,
yeah,
under the ice, like
Mhm.
there's nothing.
nothing there.
wow.
Yeah. Well, and that's because it is so shallow
right,
that the
Mhm.
water that they're
Yeah.
taking
Yeah,
just gets
Where
used
do the
up.
brookies go? I mean, do they get
Well, they're
a
probably
notice
little,
here that?
there are a few natives in there
Yeah.
Well,
that are,
according to
that are
David
wintering
Spur, there are
over,
quite
but
a few. He's
yeah,
been
there's
catch and release.
a couple of
Yeah.
little pools. There's still a couple of deeper spots out there. that-
Yeah,
somebody said they
there's
just
some-
stocked it again too.
Really?
well, according to David, the ones he's been catching
They're
and
all native.
releasing are native
Native,
Yeah.
yeah.
brook
Oh,
trout.
Yeah.
good, guys.
Where does all of this mountain of sediment go? When you
To
dredge it?
Cochran's, I mean, to.
Well, we
Campbell.
got a permit the trucking
Truck it in.
and where it gets trucked to, and I don't know yet.
Up on.
Cause
up
you
on
were
top
saying
of
there-
Tecumseh, so
We
it could be a
should add
4,000
it up onto
Yeah.
Tecumseh, so
We
it's
need
a
that.
4,000
10 feet
footer
short.
again.
We would love a donation to be able to.
Yeah.
do
Yeah,
No, but where do they take it? I mean.
Usually there are a couple of contractors who have pits that they
Hmm.
reuse it,
Wow,
and
it's a lot of sediment.
66,000 cubic feet.
And you
Yeah,
said there's a
so-
difference between wet and dry. You were talking
There's a
about that.
huge difference.
Cost.
So,
yeah.
yeah, it'll be dried in the same spot over by the wedding arbor
Mhm.
that we used the last time we did it in 2000.
No weddings for
No
a
weddings
while.
there.
No weddings, well, but that's part of doing it in the spring or
Yeah,
you know, and that's another reason to do it in the fall, because if we did it in the spring, it would not be repaired
Mm.
Yeah.
sufficiently for the summer
Hmm.
season. Cause it's gonna be like it was in 2008, a mess,
A mess.
and
Yeah, it's a
so
big job.
it's a big job.
Yeah.
So, anyway, that's, you know, on, now that we everybody is in agreement that on the timing and it doesn't interfere with any of the resorts plan and doesn't interfere with the summer season. We can really get into the final engineering and start doing the permitting now. But that should take the majority of next year by the time they get done. The project may include aerators. They have been conceptually included in the plan to help with bacteria
Mm.
control. We'll see whether or not they make it into the final plan. Have that discussion with DES.
Yeah, the first couple of years particularly,
Yeah, it would be
Yeah.
very important. So,
and if it's a dry year for any reason,
Yeah.
which I don't anticipate. But you never know. 2016. 2021 was
Yeah.
kind of dry, so you know, it can happen and then, yeah, so.
yeah. So
Cool.
that is the plan, and it sounds like timing wise, it'll be perfect because we
Yeah.
will have just
It's
finished
done.
the remediation
Mhm.
on the brook. And we will be looking for the Conservation Commission to help us with that request for the 4-bay permitting,
Yeah, that'd be good.
and we'll,
What was your comment about you'd like to see no 4-bay? What was that?
I don't think I said.
Oh,
that.
you did.
No, I think I said the opposite.
Yeah.
That's a really good idea.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
well,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, there's, so structure in any kind of open water is good for aquatic life. And, you know, practically speaking, you can create structure, which is a requirement for any created wetland associated with a highway project. But in this case, you've got a secondary purpose of easy clean out on an annual
Yeah.
basis. I mean, that only makes sense.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of surprised that DES turned
Why
that
would,
down.
yeah, I wonder why they would, it seems like they're shooting
Yeah, it's,
themselves.
Is there any recourse when they turn it down? Can you reapply or?
You can always reapply,
Yeah.
depends on how much money you wanna spend.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like
But they were
their
adamant.
thinking is evolving though. pretty
Yeah, and I'm
rapidly
hoping-
with all of
I'm
these
hoping,
big storms,
yeah.
so maybe.
Well, when they see the amount of material that has gone into the pond since 2008,
Yeah,
hopefully they will
yeah.
see see how that would be a huge
Mhm.
improvement. So,
And the transformation of Captain Pond over the last 20, 30 years,
Yeah.
it's just,
ridiculous.
it's almost a wetland now.
Yeah.
It is.
Indeed.
And the price tag is an estimated 2 million for. the
You said
dredging.
4 last time.
Well,
That's
no,
good.
4 is wet, would be the wet
Okay.
dredging,
Okay,
so
that's good.
it is the lowest, the dry dredging where you completely clear the pond and just have the stream routed around the side of the pond. That is the cheapest, least expensive way to do it, so, but it is still a huge number.
Yeah.
So we will probably ask for an authorization of up to 3 million with the intent that we would spend a lot less than that, but again, we're gonna be a year, we're gonna be going to town meeting this year
With the proposal.
with
Sure.
the authorization. And I don't wanna get caught where we can't enter a contract, especially if we wanna try to do a spring
Mhm.
start to the project. Don't wanna wait until March of 26 to ask for the money, so we'll be asking for the money this year.
Does the
Um,
resort kick in any money for this since they benefit from?
Well, there's an argument that they would make that they're the number one taxpayer in town, so they are paying
I
a
see.
portion of it, but that's, in the eye of the beholder,
Yeah.
so.
Of course, you have to think about the feds. We've talked about this too.
Mhm.
It's like, well, let's see, it's coming from the White Mountain National Forest.
Right,
Um,
well,
and-
they begged off of the last time we did it,
Yeah.
they were not involved at all.
Yeah.
It was,
No,
the only participation on the federal level was US Fish and Wildlife
Really?
Right.
was involved because we're building the benches out into the pond a little bit to create the wetlands along the
Yeah,
edges
yeah.
of the pond. We're gonna propose a dredging plan that does not include those this
Mhm.
time. Because I really think they contributed a lot to the sedimentation within the pond. So that's why we're gonna go with a straight,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, so-
straight dredging, just the sides evenly out right to the edge of the pond. And we're gonna try to create a very consistent edge to the pond this
Mhm.
time. Really, when you think about it, we didn't create anything that isn't available in the national forest, like very close to us. So it really didn't add a lot as far from an environmental standpoint, and it really did contribute
Mhm.
to the sedimentation.
How did that happen? I'm curious. You said it.
It was
contributed-
the only way that DES would let us do any type of dredging.
No,
They
you said it
demanded.
contributed to the sedimentation.
Well, just slowing down the water and it was, being that it was only a foot deep along those benches, the water slowed down and those benches were the first things that started filling in.
Mhm.
And then as they filled in, it just worked its way
Yeah.
towards the center, that's what we've seen, so. Our approach is to just do the grading on the slopes at an even, consistent level and get a deep
Mhm. Deep
section channel through the middle of the pond. So I don't know if that's a correct assessment from the way you'd look at it.
Yeah,
Rick, but
You know,
Um,
the function of the pond is different than a naturally occurring pond that is meant for wildlife habitat. The ponds that I've permitted have a very different function.
Mhm.
I have permitted trout ponds and
Mhm.
they're more like that in
Right.
the way that you're going on very even and you're going deep. But beyond that, this is a very different pond, so it makes sense to me.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't realize it was up to 2 million though. That's a good number. Because we talked about this several years
well, it's
ago.
probably 2.2 million.
Yeah.
I think that's the actual number
Yeah.
that they gave us was 2.2, and that's the other reason for asking for more than that in the authorization.
Mhm.
We don't end up bonding, we can get a bond anticipation note to do the project so that we have the funds available, but we won't actually bond anything that we don't spend on the project. So,
The snowmaking that is using water drawn from the pond, is that just for the Nordic Trail right nearby?
no, that goes up to the
The
mountain.
mountain.
Really?
There's a
There's
Wow.
a small
10
one
inch-
up there.
10-inch line or something, there's a huge water line.
Huh.
Wow.
That goes, there's a pump station right beside the wastewater treatment plant out here.
Yeah,
And those, there's a pump at the pond.
yeah.
There's like a 6-inch or 8-inch line that
Wow.
goes under Village Trail, under
Really?
Snows
I didn't
Brook
know
Road,
that.
and goes all the way to that. There's an enclosure there where the pumps are, and the water dumps into there, and then the two high lift pumps power it up the mountain, and then it goes into the snowmaking pond beside the admin building
Yep, yep.
up there.
What surprised me at the meeting that Charles Sununu had with the Ray Center, I don't know if you guys
Yeah,
were there, that years and years ago, the mountain had received permission from the Forest Service to build some, I think 2 or 3 snow ponds up there, which they never did.
Well, actually,
Just the one.
those snow ponds are right across from the wastewater treatment plant. They're down here.
They're down
They're
here.
not up there.
Oh, I thought they were up at the
No,
mountain.
they were gonna basically transfer the operation from Corcoran's Pond to those snowmaking ponds.
But I was surprised that it was
Yeah.
never
Never
put
followed.
into place.
Hmm. And they probably never get those permits.
No, you can.
I don't know.
Nowadays.
Yeah.
No way.
How's a permit going for the septic system up there?
Yeah, it's going. It's another year and a half down the road. So,
Hmm.
yep, that's the other thing, we are continuing to work on that. And looking at a sewer line from the new plant up to the base lodge versus a septic system up there. And a discontinuation of the sewer line coming down. So
Hmm.
that's in the process. But yeah, getting through the Forest Service bureaucracy is fun. As Rick knows. As Rick knows.
Yeah.
So, yep. And on the wastewater treatment plant, we have a field trip to Epping to look at their sewer treatment plant. And so we'll be reporting on that on Wednesday. And the permit or the project is continuing on, work on the basis of design report. Still looking at the end of the year to have a type of plant selected. We've gotten the initial 5 different types of plants down to 2 right now, that we're looking at, and hopefully make the final recommendation to the select board probably in November on which type of plant to build, which will allow us to pick a conceptual layout for the footprint. And then we can get into final design starting in March.
And when is that theoretically gonna come online?
Theoretically, it won't be online till 28, 29.
Yeah,
Construction will probably begin in the spring of 27, maybe the fall of 26.
Yeah.
Final design work will be all of 25, and then the bidding process and getting a contractor on board to begin.
are these going away, the ponds? or-
Yeah, so the ponds will go away, our current plant will go away, it will be a completely new.
New
Facility.
facility, wow. Little old
So-
Waterville,
Yeah.
lots of
Never
big
dull
stuff
moment,
going
huh?
A lot of
on.
big money stuff going
Yeah.
on.
Well, you know, it always, yeah, I talk to people about, well, do you realize it's all sort of 550 acres, that's it, boom, concentration,
Lots of concentration.
one of the highest densities in the state.
Is it?
Yeah, in terms of communities, in terms of, let's call it the village, that's really what we're talking about,
Mhm.
Not an incorporated city, but
Pretty close.
has a lot of the same stuff going
Yes.
on.
Yeah.
And then stormwater, I just thought I'd ask in relative to stormwater stuff.
Backing up, part of the wastewater treatment plant project, or the permit that we have, the new permit, requires a maintenance plan, if you remember right, of our entire sanitary sewer, not the stormwater, but sanitary sewer. So we are working with EPA right now on that plan. And we got funding from the Northern Borders Commission, got a $250,000 grant that will allow us to actually investigate the entire existing system, all of the sewer pipes in town, with a physical investigation camera going down through them, and a classification of what kind of condition they're in, and development of a maintenance plan for all of our sewer facilities in the ground. So it's not only the plant that we're redoing, it's the entire
It's the
collection
collection.
system as well. So that work has already started, where we've submitted a draft CMOM is what it's called, a collection system maintenance and operations annual. So once the EPA says, yep, that meets all of our requirements, then we will start the project under the grant to actually get a contractor to come in, and engineering firm to come in and do that work for us. Then the stormwater side, we're just waiting for the other shoe to drop and the state to order us to have a stormwater collection system in addition to the sanitary sewer. So we are allowing for it. A lot of the Snowsbrook, Tecumseh and Valley Road repair project included drainage improvements. and all of the work on Snow's Mountain Road and Boulder Path Road, the engineering will include drainage improvements as well, so that we start to have a more comprehensive stormwater control program. But I would anticipate that that is the next utility that's required here in the state of New Hampshire.
Have you had any washouts?
No,
Wow.
a little bit on Triple I Road,
Mm.
a little bit, I mean, here and
Some
there,
shoulders.
Just,
a culvert
shoulders,
failure
yeah,
or
yeah,
something
one or
like
two,
that,
which is,
but not wholesale
yeah,
roads.
nothing like up
washouts.
north.
Boy,
No.
they
Those involved.
really,
Oh, thank God.
Yeah.
sounds like
Yeah,
a little
jeez.
time.
Thank God.
Wow, that was a mess.
Yeah, and
that-
so that hasn't really happened here.
Yeah.
We had some pretty good ones on Triple I Road. We're working with the Forest Service. FEMA has started to fund repairs that we have made here. There is the culvert, the major culverts under Valley Road over by the athletic center.
Mhm.
There's two very large 4-foot
Mhm.
culverts there that are side by the underpass.
Underpass, yeah.
Mhm.
Those will probably be replaced next summer. We're currently working with the engineers and DES to determine whether we're gonna replace them in kind or whether we're gonna put in a single
Single span.
single span
Ah.
culvert, maybe 6 or 8 feet
I think that's
rather than
Esker
the two
Brook.
fours.
I think
Huh?
it is.
I think that waterway, we refer to it as Esker Brook.
Yeah, it's the little brook that
Yeah.
goes down beside Packard's Field,
Right,
between
yeah.
Packard's
Yeah,
Field
yeah,
and the
yeah.
Arbor
Mhm. Yeah.
property. That there is some voids that have shown up in the bankings and stuff, and we need to dig that out. It'll probably mean Valley Road will be cut most of next summer, but
Oh, great.
we'll we'll get them in and out as quickly as we can. The good thing is FEMA, in addition to the repairs, also pays for mitigation. And the mitigation office of FEMA has identified that as a
Hmm.
project. And so rather than the 75% that you get for repairs, it's 100% of mitigation
For the
costs.
mitigation.
Good.
So we could be looking at getting all of it paid for by FEMA, so. And that would
Wow.
go a long way to
That's huge.
improving
Yeah.
drainage along there. So,
Yeah. Well, that's great, cause you know, that was,
stormwater control is
our
huge, and I don't really
takeaways.
think that the pond is being affected by our stormwater.
yeah,
It's in the open drainage
Mhm.
ditches and it's in our culverts pretty well.
Mhm.
I think it gets to Snows Brook and to the river pretty well around here. And so I don't think we're having a real environmental issue with our stormwater. I think it's just gonna be the change in regulations that we see
Mhm.
at DES where they require us to have that formal program, whereas right now towns are just allowed to maintain it, right? And do basically what they want. Now
Yeah.
you're gonna have to have a design system and you're gonna have to have a maintenance program for it, just like you would sewer or water. But I don't know if you
Yeah,
are
I mean,
seeing the
there's,
same thing. coming.
yeah, there's
Yeah.
some, it's, the way I see it transitioning is that the more federal money comes in, like the IRA monies
Yeah.
that come in, and the states respond in kind with projects that then have federal mandate requirements attached to them, then the towns have to pony up in a way that meets those federal standards, and that's where it's seems to be driving, even this, the Northern Border Regional Commission, I mean, it's all federal.
It is.
And that's, I was saying,
Yeah.
I just finished an EA for Newport, their new town well, and that's, it was more than what we're normally used to in terms of permitting something like that, so.
Yeah. And along the lines of increasing federal regulations, is the lead and copper requirements. We're now working with a consulting group. There's a new federal regulation where the town must know the type of material for every service line, not just the water mains. And I don't know how a city like Concord or Manchester is going to do this. But the initial response is due back in October of this year. And they don't want you to just guess or use a plan. They want physical digging and verification of every service line. That's, even here in Waterville Valley, that's probably a project in excess of $1 million. You're talking about every little
Line that goes from a
line that
main
goes
out
from a
to-
main to any building or any property. You must know when it was installed, what type of material it's made out of, whether or not it has any lead, including soldering of connections to the houses. It is a ridiculous requirement, and nobody has told us how we're gonna pay for this yet. But that is an existing EPA requirement now. For every water system in the entire country. And so we're trying to get a handle on
Flint.
how
Yeah,
much,
that's-
well, it all comes from Flint. Yeah,
Yeah.
all of this stuff does, all
Yeah.
the PFAS, all the
Yeah.
lead. It all comes from the bad actors, and then everybody else has to
Yeah,
Only,
pony up.
yeah.
So I don't, we don't know where that is really gonna lead, but we're continuing to work. And quite frankly, our first response is,
Yeah.
we don't know.
No.
We don't know. And I mean, a
Well,
lot
when
of
you-
towns are in that boat.
When you
right?
dig something up to fix it,
When we dig it up, we'll
then you'll
know.
know.
That's right.
you'll know.
That's-
Yeah.
But even then, the cost of staying on top of every property in town so that every time something gets dug up is
Yeah.
a monitoring
Yeah.
system that we're gonna have to design,
Mm.
if they let us even go that way.
Yeah.
When you think about these condo associations and the way that they got to buildings.
Yeah.
I mean, we got lines that
Yeah.
go all over the place. Look at that water main,
Right.
probably fully a third of our water mains themselves are on private property. That's the other thing. Most communities put their water lines and their sewer lines in the public rights of way. We didn't do that when it was being built. We just cut across a property,
Get her done.
get her done, we need water over there. Okay,
Let's go.
we're going straight across here. And,
Ay, ay, ay.
and well, everything belonged to one person.
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
And so,
Exactly.
Unique
who also happened
situation.
to be in charge of the local government. And-
That's right.
But I mean, that's
Oh.
just, and, I was in a company town in Lubec and it was the same thing.
Yeah.
It was all about the fish factories and what those guys wanted back in the day. And so you just deal with it and try to sort it out. And
You won't be alone if there's some time that's involved in figuring all that out.
well, no, and
Yeah.
like I said, it's every town
Every
in the
town.
state has to do it, and
Mm.
it's a mandate for everybody. There are no exceptions. I mean, so you can imagine you know, something like Manchester Water, Pennacook Water System, what they're trying to figure out.
Yeah,
And sometimes those bigger organizations have a good filing system and have had regulations in place. But some of those systems also go back to the 1800s.
Right.
sounds like a budding career opportunity for
There you
young people wanting
There
to
you
get
go.
into
I know.
Yep.
Really?
Job security.
job
Job
security.
security.
Thank
Yeah.
you,
All
Rick.
right, thank you, Ray.
Thank you so much. That was
Thank
great.
you.
And we'll keep in touch.
All right, thank you.
Okay,
Take
Yeah,
care.
look forward to it.
bye-bye.
So do we have to officially make them,
I have a question though.
okay?
The notice that we got from Eric regard of slope side,
Yes. I've
Yeah,
looked-
that was the other thing that she wanted.
Yeah.
The planning board is looking for one member of the Conservation Commission who would want to serve on that. And it's kind of a quick thing. I think Tara wants to get going so they can maybe have something for
the town
zoning
meeting.
stuff, yeah, for town meeting.
Isn't it a day late and a dollar short?
Well, I wondered about that too,
Yeah.
Cindy, because I looked up what the state, sort of an example
Yeah.
of what it would be, and I'm thinking, okay.
Well, yeah, Tara says that in her thing. She said it's pretty much all developed
Yeah,
anyway, but she wants to at least incorporate the language in the what she's recommending to the planning board is that they incorporate the language that's in the subdivision approval or application into the site plan. She just wants a very, very minimum change to our steep
Okay.
slopes, not adopting a whole thing.
people would be at least aware.
But she
it's
does want
there.
someone, so I don't know if there anyone, Paul or anyone
Yeah,
else to volunteer.
we haven't heard a word from
Is
Paul, we
Paul
don't,
there
he's
yet?
supposedly there.
Paul, you had a hard time getting into the meeting. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. It's been working. It's been working well now for, I don't know, the last 40 minutes. So
Okay, good.
Okay.
Okay.
yeah, the first couple shots were not so good, but I'm here. I could volunteer if you want. I can work with
Okay.
Irid on that if you'd like.
You would
That'd be
good,
awesome.
We'll
yeah.
Fill us in.
Yeah, it'll
Yep.
be quick. I think maybe in the next week or two, I think she wants to meet, so.
Okay. Yep.
All right, I don't know.
Yeah, and as Charles brought up, he was on a conservation committee in our association in Michigan. And things were already set, so you couldn't tell people, well, you can't do that, right?
Well,
Didn't you
I'm
say
just-
some of the
I'm
building
just curious about these
things?
slope restrictions. Once people own their lot and they've bought it under certain understandings, isn't it a problem to tell them that we're not going to approve such and such building plan because of the slope?
I don't think it's that drastic. I think it's just that they would have to, protect anything downstream from erosion and
So-
all sorts of
Yeah,
erosion mitigation
okay.
measures.
And I think in New Hampshire, the general rule or the approach is you you can't ever go back and make somebody change something
Right,
that's already permitted. It's whatever
Moving
permits from
forward.
that point forward would have to comply with whatever the changes are.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
And then the only other thing is Irit has September 18th for our next meeting.
yeah.
It's
That works
okay.
for everyone. I don't know what day of the week it is. I assume it's a Wednesday though.
I think it's Wednesday.
It is. I already
put
put it in my calendar.
last night,
Yep.
Yeah.
It is.
Okay. All right, so I think we're ready to adjourn unless there's anything else that anyone wanted to. I think we're gonna talk about the library thing at the September meeting, the speaker.
Yeah.
So that's for next month. So
Yeah. the gal-
10:45?
10:45?
The gal, who sent me that was, I had mentioned.
all right, Paul, I'm gonna
replied
stop the
to her,
recording.
and she was
Thanks,
excited.
Paul.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Paul.
Thanks. No
Yeah.
problem. Thanks. See you later.
Bye.